Welcome to Silent Queen's Reckoning. I'm so glad you could join us today. Now let's dive right into the story.
Chapter 1. Amelia Hart came home 3 days early and found a wedding altar in her backyard. Not a proposal setup, not a styled photo shoot. A real wedding. White chairs lined the lawn in perfect rows. A string quartet played beneath the old maple tree. Florists were weaving ivory roses through the iron arch her father had built for her mother 25 years earlier. Champagne glittered on silver trays. Guests in pale summer dresses and linen suits turned toward the garden path, smiling as if they belonged there. At the altar stood Amelia's boyfriend. Lucas Wren wore a cream tuxedo and the expression of a man waiting for his life to begin. Beside him, in a silk wedding dress and Amelia's mother's pearl veil, stood Amelia's best friend, Sienna Vale. For 3 seconds, Amelia could not hear the music. The suitcase handle was still warm beneath her palm. Her flight from London had landed at dawn after the acquisition talks ended early. She had not told anyone she was coming home because she wanted to surprise Lucas. She had imagined coffee in the kitchen, his startled smile, maybe the softness they had lost over the last few months under the excuse of work. Instead, she stood at the edge of her own garden and watched him take Sienna's hand. Someone near the back whispered, "Is that her?" Another voice answered, "No, it cannot be." Lucas said she was in Europe until Friday. Amelia's gaze moved from the altar to the house. Her house. Gray stone walls. Blue shutters. French doors opened to the terrace. The cottage garden she planted after her father's death. The West Wing library where Sienna had cried into Amelia's lap after her own breakup 2 years ago. The kitchen where Lucas made pancakes on Sunday mornings and told Amelia he had never felt at home anywhere until her. Now the terrace had been turned into a reception area. Her dining tables were outside. Her mother's crystal glasses stood in rows. Her father's antique lanterns hung from the trees. Near the rose bushes, a large sign read, "Lucas and Sienna finally home." Amelia stared at those 2 words. Finally home. The officiant cleared his throat at the altar. Lucas looked annoyed before he looked afraid. That tiny sequence told Amelia more than any confession could have. First, he was irritated that the schedule had been interrupted. Only then did he remember she had the right to interrupt it. Sienna saw her a second later. The bride's face went white beneath perfect makeup. The pearl veil trembled against her shoulders. Amelia knew that veil. Her mother had worn it in a black and white photograph that sat on the mantel. Amelia had touched it only once after her mother's funeral, and put it back in cedar paper, because some things were too intimate to become decoration. Sienna had stolen it. Lucas stepped down from the altar. "Amelia." The guests shifted. Phones rose discreetly. A woman in the front row gasped and covered her mouth, not from sympathy, but from the thrill of witnessing disaster in good lighting. Amelia set her suitcase upright on the stone path. She did not scream. That disappointed several people at once. Lucas moved toward her, palms open. "This is not what it looks like." Amelia looked past him at Sienna's white dress, the officiant, the wedding license folder on the small table, the rows of guests, the champagne, the sign. "Then what does it look like?" she asked. Her voice was quiet. Too quiet. Lucas's mother, Patricia Wren, stood from the front row. She wore lavender silk and the smug composure of a woman who had spent years calling Amelia practical when she meant inadequate. "Amelia," Patricia said, "do not embarrass yourself." Amelia turned slowly. Patricia's chin lifted. "This day is important to Lucas. Whatever private disappointment you feel, it should be handled with dignity." Private disappointment. Amelia almost admired the phrase. It took real talent to call betrayal a scheduling inconvenience. Sienna finally moved. She gathered the skirt of her dress and stepped forward, eyes shining with carefully timed tears. "Amy, I can explain." Amelia's mouth tightened at the nickname. Only her father had called her Amy without asking. "Do not call me that in my mother's veil." Sienna stopped. Lucas glanced toward the guests. "Amelia, please. Come inside. We can talk." "In my house?" His jaw flexed. "Our house." There it was. The second theft. The first was the man. The second was the home. The third, Amelia suspected, was somewhere in the paperwork. Behind Lucas, a tall man in a gray suit stepped out from the terrace doors. Amelia recognized him as Grant Holloway, Lucas's college friend and current attorney. Grant carried a leather folder and looked like someone whose legal strategy had just walked into the garden alive. Amelia looked at him. "Grant." His expression tightened. "Amelia, you are here as a guest or counsel?" He did not answer fast enough. Patricia snapped, "Enough. You were gone." Lucas moved on. Sienna is pregnant, and he is doing the honorable thing. The garden went silent. Amelia looked at Sienna. Sienna's hand drifted toward her waist. Pregnant. Another word arranged for maximum damage. Lucas took a step closer. "I was going to tell you when you returned." "After the wedding?" It became complicated. Amelia looked around at the chairs, the flowers, the guests drinking champagne from her mother's crystal. "No," she said. It became catered. A nervous laugh escaped someone near the back and died immediately. Patricia's face reddened. "You always do this. You stand there with that cold little face and make everyone else feel crude for having feelings." Amelia looked at her. "Your son is marrying my best friend in my backyard while I am expected to be overseas. Because you never gave him a home." The sentence landed strangely in the garden because even the guests seemed to understand the house behind them contradicted it. Lucas moved between them. "Mother." Sienna began to cry. "I did not want it this way." Amelia turned back to her. "You wore the veil." Sienna's tears paused. That was when Amelia knew. Sienna could excuse the affair as passion, the pregnancy as fate, the wedding as urgency. But the veil had required a choice. A hand opening a box. Fingers lifting old lace. A woman looking at a dead mother's keepsake and deciding her own victory deserved it. Amelia picked up her suitcase. Lucas looked relieved too soon. "Good. Let's talk inside." "No." He blinked. Amelia took out her phone and called the estate manager. Lucas's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" "Asking why there are 200 trespassers on my lawn." Chapter 2. Amelia had bought Graymere House under a trust before Lucas ever saw it. That fact mattered now. To everyone else, the property looked like an old money country house outside Greenwich, the kind of place wealthy families inherited along with silver and emotional repression. In truth, Amelia had purchased it after her father's death through Hawthorne Lane Trust, a private structure controlled by her family office. She had restored the house slowly, room by room, using architects who understood that grief sometimes needed walls to repair. Lucas moved in 2 years later. Not as owner. Not as partner. As the man Amelia loved. At the time, he was charming, ambitious, and hungry in a way that made her want to feed him rather than fear him. He had grown up adjacent to money, but never inside it. Patricia Wren had raised him to believe he deserved grandeur, because his grandfather once owned a failing textile mill, and because she had spent 40 years telling herself elegance was genetic. Lucas wanted to build a luxury hospitality company. Amelia helped. She introduced him to lenders without putting her name in headlines. She reviewed contracts. She structured investments through a discreet entity called Northmark Capital. She protected his pride because she thought love meant letting a man stand tall even when your hand was the railing. Lucas believed Northmark was an outside investor. Patricia believed Lucas had finally found the backing his vision deserved. Sienna believed whatever helped her feel chosen. Only Amelia's father had warned her before he died. "Do not build a throne for a man who resents the hand that steadies it," he had said from his hospital bed. Amelia had thought he was being cynical. Now she stood in her garden, listening to the wedding quartet falter through a soft instrumental version of At Last, and understood he had been polite. The estate manager, Owen Brooks, answered on the second ring. "Miss Hart." "Owen, are you on site?" "At the north gate. I have been trying to reach you." "Why?" His voice tightened. "Mr. Wren said you approved a private family ceremony. The vendor packet had your digital authorization." Amelia looked at Lucas. He stared back, face set. "I did not approve it," she said. Owen went quiet. "Understood," he said. "Do you want security to pause the event?" Lucas stepped closer. "Amelia, do not do this." She held his gaze. "Pause it." Owen's voice was calm now. "Professional." "Yes, ma'am." Within 30 seconds, 2 security staff appeared from the side path. The quartet stopped completely. A caterer lowered a tray of champagne. The officiant closed his folder with the look of a man reconsidering his fee. Guests began whispering openly. Patricia marched toward Amelia. "You cannot stop a wedding because your feelings are hurt." "No," Amelia said. "But I can stop an unauthorized event on private property." Patricia laughed. "Private property? You let Lucas live here. This is his home too." "A home is not a deed." Lucas's face hardened. "That is cruel." Amelia looked at him. "So is planning a wedding behind my back." Sienna wiped tears from her cheeks. "We were going to leave after the ceremony. We were not trying to take the house." Amelia looked at the sign again. "Finally home." Sienna followed her gaze and flushed. Grant Holloway stepped forward, attorney mode replacing guest discomfort. Amelia, I advise everyone to avoid escalation. There are representations that may support Lucas's resident's interest. Representations by whom? Grant hesitated. By Lucas? Amelia asked. Lucas snapped. I have lived here for 3 years. 2 years and 7 months. Do you hear yourself? Accurate? His eyes flashed. You always make love sound like a ledger. Amelia felt that one. Not because it was fair, but because he knew exactly where to aim. He had accused her of emotional accounting whenever she asked for reciprocity. Who cooked? Who hosted? Who apologized? Who gave? Who disappeared inside logistics so his dreams looked effortless? She breathed through the old wound and did not let it bleed into the garden. Love is not a ledger, she said, but fraud often leaves one. Grant's face changed. Lucas noticed. Amelia turned to Owen, who had arrived with a tablet in hand. Show me the authorization. Owen handed it over. The vendor packet was clean. Too clean. A digital approval bearing Amelia's name, a signature image copied from her estate accounts, and a payment authorization charged to Hart House Events, a subsidiary created to manage charitable gatherings at Greymere. Amelia scrolled slowly. Flowers. Catering. Tent rental. Officiant. Musicians. Guest parking. Staff overtime. Custom signage. Bridal suite preparation. Wardrobe handling. Wardrobe handling. She opened the line item. Pearl veil retrieval and steaming. Her jaw tightened. Sienna looked away. Amelia handed the tablet back. Preserve all records. Owen nodded. Already backing up. Patricia sneered. You are turning a painful personal matter into an administrative spectacle. Amelia faced her. No. Lucas did that when he used my event company to pay for his wedding. The guests reacted then. Not loudly, but enough. A wave of whispers moved through the chairs. Sienna grabbed Lucas's sleeve. You said it was handled. Amelia heard the sentence. So did everyone else close enough. Lucas turned toward Sienna too sharply. Not now. Handled? Amelia asked. Sienna's lips parted, but Patricia cut in. She is pregnant and overwhelmed. Stop interrogating her. Amelia looked at the younger woman in the stolen veil. Pregnancy did not make betrayal innocent. It did make the child innocent, and that distinction mattered. Sienna, Amelia said, sit down. Sienna blinked. If you are pregnant, you do not need to stand here while the adults discuss the invoices. The cruelty of that sentence was not in the words. It was in the accuracy. Sienna sat in the nearest chair as if her knees had stopped belonging to her. Lucas looked at Amelia with a mix of hatred and pleading. Please, let the guests leave, and we will discuss this privately. Amelia looked at the rows of people who had come to witness her replacement in her own backyard. They should leave, she said. Lucas exhaled. After they give their names to security. Chapter 3. It took 40 minutes to empty the garden. 40 minutes of guests pretending they had not come to watch a betrayal formalized under roses. 40 minutes of vendors exchanging looks as security copied contracts and invoices. 40 minutes of Sienna, sitting in a wedding dress at the edge of the lawn, while her mascara slowly surrendered. 40 minutes of Lucas pacing near the altar, phone in hand, arguing in whispers with Grant. Amelia used the time to walk through the house. She did not run. She did not storm. She inspected. The foyer had been filled with white flowers. Her father's portrait had been removed from the entry wall and replaced with a framed engagement photo of Lucas and Sienna. In the dining room, place cards identified tables named after cities Lucas wanted to develop hotels in: Paris, Milan, Santorini, Kyoto. In the library, someone had moved Amelia's acquisition files into storage boxes and set up a bridal dressing room. On the desk where Amelia once signed the first Northmark investment documents, Sienna's makeup artist had spilled powder. Amelia stood in the doorway and let the details enter her one by one. Not because she wanted to suffer, because pain blurred the room unless you made it testify. Owen followed silently with photographs and video. Do not miss the cedar chest, Amelia said. He turned. The chest was open near the window. Inside, the archival wrapping for the pearl veil lay crumpled beside Sienna's perfume bottle. Owen's expression tightened. He had worked for Amelia's father before he worked for her. He had seen the veil stored after the funeral. His voice lowered. I am sorry. Record it. He did. In the primary bedroom, the final line snapped. Sienna's overnight bag sat on Amelia's chaise. Lucas's clothes had been moved to the left wardrobe. Amelia's clothes were still there, but pushed aside. On the dresser, a small handwritten note read, "Move Amelia's things to guest room after ceremony." Patricia's handwriting. Owen saw it at the same time Amelia did. "Photograph it," Amelia said. Her voice remained steady. Owen's did not. "Yes, ma'am." In the guest room, boxes were stacked against the wall. Amelia opened one and found her sweaters, scarves, framed photographs, old letters, and the silver brush set her mother had left her. Not discarded. Relocated. That was worse. Discarding would have admitted cruelty. Relocation pretended she was already gone. Amelia picked up the framed photograph on top. Her parents at the garden arch, laughing beneath spring rain. The glass was cracked. For the first time since the garden, her hand trembled. Only once. Then she set the frame down and closed the box. By the time she returned to the terrace, the guests had mostly gone. The chairs remained like evidence. White petals blew across the lawn. The altar leaned slightly in the wind, suddenly cheap, without expectation. Lucas stood near the steps with Patricia, Grant, and Sienna. Sienna had removed the veil. She held it in both hands, no longer a bride, not yet a defendant in anything formal, but very aware that romance had become a property dispute. Amelia walked to her and took the veil. Sienna did not resist. "I am sorry," Sienna whispered. Amelia looked at the pearl lace. "For wearing it or being caught?" Sienna closed her eyes. Patricia stepped forward. "This has gone far enough. Sienna is carrying Lucas's child. Then Lucas should start behaving like a father instead of a trespasser." Lucas's face flushed. "You can be angry at me. Do not humiliate my mother." Amelia turned to him. "Your mother packed my belongings into the guest room." He looked at Patricia. Patricia's mouth tightened. "We needed space for the bride." Even Grant looked down. Amelia laughed once. It came out soft and empty. "The bride," she repeated. Lucas moved closer. "Amelia, I know this is ugly. But you and I were over." "Were we?" "Emotionally, yes. You asked me to review your Tuscany resort contract last Tuesday. Business can continue after love changes." "And the bed?" Silence. Sienna's eyes opened. Lucas's jaw tightened. Amelia looked at her former best friend. "Did he tell you we had not been together in months?" Sienna's face drained. "Sienna," Lucas warned. Amelia nodded slightly. "Of course." Sienna stared at him. "You said." "I said this is not the time," Lucas snapped. The tone was ugly enough to make her flinch. Amelia recognized that flinch. She had done it privately for months whenever Lucas's charm fell away, and impatience showed its teeth. Grant cleared his throat. "We need to separate the personal issues from legal exposure." "Good," Amelia said. "Begin with the forged authorization." Lucas snapped. It was not forged. Owen looked up from his tablet. Amelia said, "Then explain how my digital signature approved wedding expenses while I was on a secure client site in London." Lucas's eyes shifted. Small. Fast. "Enough." Grant stepped in. "There may have been prior verbal approval for use of the grounds." "For a wedding?" He said nothing. Patricia lifted her chin. "You always told Lucas this was his home." "I told him he was loved here." "Same thing." Amelia looked at her. "That confusion explains today." Lucas's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and went still. Amelia saw the name before he turned away. Northmark Capital. The outside investor he did not know was hers. Chapter for Lucas did not answer the call. That was his third mistake. The first was planning the wedding. The second was using Amelia's property and signature. The third was thinking unanswered calls stopped consequences. Amelia knew exactly why Northmark was calling. Her London trip had been for the final acquisition meeting tied to Wren Hospitality Group, Lucas's company. Northmark was about to release a major financing tranche for his flagship project, a chain of boutique hotels built around heritage estates and intimate event spaces. Graymere House had been part of the pitch. Not officially as collateral. Amelia had never allowed that. But Lucas had used images of her home in investor materials, calling it the inspiration for his design philosophy. He told lenders he had access to private estate networks and family property partnerships. Amelia had corrected him once. He laughed and said storytelling was not fraud. She now suspected his definition of storytelling had widened. Lucas shoved the phone into his pocket. "We should discuss this inside." "No. Amelia. The house is closed to you." Patricia gasped. "You cannot throw him out of his home." Owen stepped forward. Mr. Wren's residence access is permissive under the estate's domestic occupancy agreement. Miss Hart can revoke it. Lucas turned on him. Stay out of this. Owen did not move. Amelia looked at Grant. You knew about the occupancy agreement? Grant's silence was answer enough. Patricia looked confused. Occupancy agreement? Sienna whispered, Lucas? Lucas's face darkened. It was a formality. Amelia said, it was the reason you had a key but not title. Patricia's eyes widened. Lucas, what is she talking about? Not now. This is not your house. The question came from Sienna. Not Patricia. It was quiet, and it cut through the garden with humiliating precision. Lucas glared at her. I said not now. Sienna's hand moved to her stomach. You told me after the wedding we would live here. Amelia looked at her. There it was again. Another woman discovering she had been sold a room inside someone else's life. Patricia recovered by force. The legal technicalities can be handled. Lucas has invested years into this property. He hosted unauthorized vendors and moved my belongings. Because you were gone. On a business trip funding his company. Lucas's head snapped toward her. Too late. Patricia frowned. What does that mean? Grant looked as if he wanted to dissolve into the patio stone. Lucas said, Amelia, do not. She looked at him. Do not what? Tell your mother that Northmark's capital came through my family office? Tell Sienna that the hotel project she expected to inherit as Mrs. Wren is currently under review because the founder attempted to marry her in an unauthorized event on an investor-controlled estate. The garden stopped. Even the wind seemed quieter. Patricia's mouth opened. Sienna stared at Lucas. Lucas's eyes were fixed on Amelia, hatred and fear finally standing side by side. You lied, he said. Amelia almost smiled. To whom? Northmark was yours? Northmark is managed by professionals. But controlled by you. Yes. He took one step back. The color left his face in stages. For years, Lucas had told Amelia she did not understand entrepreneurial risk because she came from quiet wealth. He said money made her cautious. He said investors wanted vision, not footnotes. He said she loved limiting him. All that time, he had been praising Northmark's sophistication in meetings, quoting its term sheets, telling friends that the mystery investor saw his genius. Now he knew the mystery investor had been the woman he planned to replace before she came home. Sienna began to cry again, but this time the tears sounded different. Less performance. More panic. Lucas, what did you do? He turned on her. Do not start. Amelia stepped between them without thinking. Lucas saw the movement and laughed bitterly. Of course. Now you protect her. I am protecting the child from a man losing control in public. His face hardened. You think you can take everything? Amelia looked at the altar, the chairs, the stolen veil now folded over her arm, the cracked photograph inside the house, the vendor invoices, the signature, the phone call from Northmark. No, she said. I think you already spent what was never yours. Chapter 5. By dusk, Graymere House looked like the morning after a storm. The wedding arch was half dismantled. Florists carried out buckets of roses. Caterers packed uneaten food into metal trays. Musicians left through the side gate with the dignified speed of people who wanted no subpoenas. Security escorted Patricia to her car after she refused to stop shouting that Amelia was vindictive. Sienna left with her cousin. Not Lucas. That mattered. Lucas remained in the library with Grant, Amelia, Owen, and 2 attorneys who arrived from Amelia's office before the sun dropped behind the trees. One represented Hawthorne Lane Trust. The other represented Northmark Capital. Lucas had never looked smaller than he did sitting across from both. The library still smelled faintly of Sienna's perfume and setting spray. Amelia hated that. Grant tried to begin with emotion. This situation is painful for everyone. Amelia's trust attorney, Vivian Shaw, looked at him over her glasses. Payne did not approve the vendor packet. Grant shifted. My client disputes the characterization of forgery. Northmark counsel, Daniel Cho, slid a printed document across the table. Then your client can explain this metadata. Lucas stared at the page. The digital authorization had been submitted from an office IP associated with Wren Hospitality Group. The signature file had been copied from a PDF Amelia had signed months earlier. The approval time stamp placed Amelia in a secure London conference facility, where device access was logged and restricted. Grant's jaw tightened. There may have been delegated authority, he said. Vivian Shaw turned a page. There was not. Lucas's voice rose. I was planning to reimburse everything. Amelia looked at him. With what? He glared. Do not humiliate me. That is not an answer. Daniel Cho opened another folder. Ren Hospitality's current liquidity depends on Northmark's pending release. That release is now suspended. Lucas shot to his feet. You cannot do that. Daniel did not blink. We can. The financing agreement includes a conduct clause, a representation integrity clause, and a no unauthorized use of investor-affiliated assets clause. A wedding is not a corporate matter. It became one when you used investor-affiliated property, event accounts, staff, and branding without permission. Grant placed a hand on Lucas's arm. Sit down. Lucas remained standing. Amelia, call them off. The room went quiet. There it was. Not apology. Not remorse. Command disguised as desperation. Amelia sat at the head of the table, the pearl veil folded before her in archival paper Owen had brought from storage. She looked at the man who had once held her in this very room after her father's memorial and promised he would never make her feel alone in her own house. Why? She asked. Lucas stared. Because I built this company. With Northmark funding. Because you believed in me. I did. The past tense landed. He heard it. Amelia, he said, softer now. I made a horrible mistake. Vivian Shaw's pen paused. Amelia looked up fully. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is sending a text to the wrong person. You planned a wedding, forged my approval, moved my belongings, used my mother's veil, and invited guests to watch my replacement. Lucas's eyes reddened. I was afraid. Of what? Of you. The words burst out before he could decorate them. He looked away, breathing hard. Of how much of my life depended on you. The house, the money, the contracts, the introductions. You never said it out loud, but I felt it every day. Amelia's chest tightened. This was the old Lucas. The honest one. The man with terror under ambition. The man she had mistaken for someone ready to grow, rather than someone waiting to resent the person who saw the fear. So you chose Sienna, she said. She looked at me like I was enough. Because you lied to her about what enough included. He flinched. Grant quietly closed his folder, as if legal argument could not compete with truth this ugly. Lucas said, she is pregnant. Then support the child legally. You will ruin me before I can. Amelia folded her hands. No. Your company will undergo review. Your access to Graymere is revoked. Unauthorized expenses will be audited. The forged authorization will be preserved. You will remove your belongings under supervision. Those are consequences, not ruin. He stared at her. You sound like you are reading a contract. Contracts saved you more often than love did. The sentence cut them both. Lucas sat slowly. For the first time since Amelia had entered the garden, he looked ashamed. Not enough. But real. Chapter 6. Sienna called Amelia at midnight. Amelia almost did not answer. She sat on the floor of her mother's old sewing room, the pearl veil spread carefully on clean muslin. The house was quiet now. Lucas had been escorted to a hotel. Patricia had sent 11 messages ranging from threats to Bible verses. Grant had requested time to respond. Vendors had provided copies of every agreement. Amelia's suitcase still stood unopened near the stairs. Her phone rang again. Sienna. Amelia answered on speaker and set the phone beside the veil. For several seconds, only breathing came through. Then Sienna whispered, I am sorry. Amelia looked at the fragile pearls sewn into old lace. For which part? The question was not rhetorical. Sienna cried softly. All of it. That is too broad to be useful. Silence. Then Sienna said, for sleeping with him while I smiled at you. For letting you talk about London while I knew we had picked a date. For wearing the veil. I knew that was wrong. I did it because Patricia said it would make me feel like the real bride. Amelia closed her eyes. The real bride. As if womanhood were a chair and only one person could sit. Sienna continued, words tumbling now. Lucas told me you and he were over. He said the house was technically yours, but emotionally his. He said you never wanted marriage, never wanted children, never wanted to make a home with him. He said you kept him dependent to control him. Amelia opened her eyes. And you believed him. I wanted to. At least that was honest. Are you pregnant? Amelia asked. Sienna's breath caught. Yes. Have you seen a doctor independent of Lucas? No. Patricia made the appointment. Amelia sat up straighter. Cancel it. What? Cancel it and book your own. Do not let Patricia manage your medical records. Sienna's voice shook. Why are you telling me that? Because she tried to move my belongings while I was alive. I do not trust her with an unborn child. Sienna began crying again, but quietly. I thought she loved me. She loved the role you were playing. And Lucas? Amelia looked toward the dark window, where her reflection sat on the floor beside a dead woman's veil. Lucas loves being believed. The line went silent. Sienna whispered, What am I supposed to do? Get your own lawyer. I cannot afford a good one. I will send 3 names. They do not work for me. Choose one or find another. Why would you help me? Amelia ran one finger over the torn edge of the veil wrapping. I am not helping you avoid consequences. I am helping make sure your child does not become one. Sienna sobbed once, a broken sound without performance. I was jealous of you, she said. Amelia laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. You had an odd way of showing admiration. You always seemed untouchable. The house, the clothes, the way people listened when you spoke. Even when you were quiet, you made rooms feel like they had to behave. I wanted that. Lucas made me feel like I could have it if he chose me. A man cannot choose you into a life he does not own. Sienna did not answer. Amelia's voice gentled despite herself. Sienna, you and I are not friends anymore. A small sound came through the speaker. But I hope you become a mother your child can trust. Sienna cried harder then. Amelia ended the call. She sat still for a while, listening to the house breathe around her. Then she folded the veil into new paper, placed it back into the cedar chest, and locked it. Chapter 7. The story reached the internet by morning. It began with a guest's blurry photo. Amelia standing at the garden path with her suitcase while Lucas and Sienna froze at the altar. The caption read, Imagine coming home early and finding your boyfriend marrying your best friend in your own backyard. By noon, the image had spread across gossip accounts, business forums, and wedding disaster pages. By 2, someone identified Lucas Wren. By 3, Wren Hospitality Group's investors were calling Northmark. By 4, Patricia's niece posted and deleted a comment claiming Amelia was an unstable ex who had abandoned Lucas and refused to let him move on. Amelia's communications director, Elise Monroe, called at 4:15. We can ignore the personal gossip, but not the investor angle, Elise said. Amelia sat in her restored library, now cleaned of Sienna's makeup powder. What is the current narrative? Betrayed girlfriend interrupts wedding. Pregnant bride. Rich house drama. Potential forged approval. People love the veil detail. Amelia looked toward the cedar chest. Do not mention the veil unless necessary. Understood. Lucas's side is preparing a statement. Saying that the relationship had ended privately, that the home was shared, that you were aware of the emotional separation, and that the event was meant to be a small ceremony before legal matters were resolved. 200 guests is small. Apparently heartbreak has a flexible guest count. Amelia almost smiled. Elise continued, We should issue something short. Draft it. An hour later, the statement went out. Miss Amelia Hart did not authorize any wedding, event expenditure, signature use, property conversion, or relocation of personal effects at Graymere House. All related records have been preserved. Because an unborn child may be affected by ongoing private matters, Miss Hart will not comment on personal allegations. Legal and financial reviews are underway. The phrase unborn child changed the tone. It did not make Amelia look soft. It made Lucas look reckless. At 7, Lucas came to the gate. Security called Amelia. She watched him on camera from her desk. He stood in the rain wearing yesterday's trousers and a dark coat, hair damp, face drawn. No cream tuxedo. No bride. No mother. No lawyer. Just a man locked outside the house he had promised to give another woman. Tell him to leave, Vivian Shaw said from the chair across from Amelia. Amelia watched him press one hand against the gate. For 2 years, that gate opened for him automatically. Let him into the front vestibule, Amelia said. Not beyond. Vivian's mouth tightened. I advise against it. Noted. Lucas entered the vestibule 5 minutes later. Glass separated the security desk from the foyer. Amelia came down the stairs in a black sweater and trousers, hair tied back, no makeup except what exhaustion had left beneath her eyes. Lucas looked at her as if the sight hurt. You changed the codes, he said. Yes. My things are inside. You will receive an inventory window tomorrow. He swallowed. Amelia, please. The word was soft enough to find old rooms inside her. She stopped at the foot of the stairs, leaving 10 feet between them. Please what? Please do not freeze Northmark. I can fix the vendor charges. I can issue a statement. I can explain. Of course. Not please forgive me. Please restore the money. Amelia felt something inside her settle. Lucas, if Northmark proceeds without review after what happened, it exposes every other investor to governance risk. Do you hear yourself? I am standing here begging, and you are talking about governance. You are begging for financing. He flinched. Rain tapped against the glass behind him. I loved you, he said. I know. No. I loved you. But you made me feel like a guest in my own life. Amelia's face changed. Not much. Enough. So you tried to make me a guest in my own house. He looked down. I did not think you would come home. That is not a defense. I know. Do you? He looked up, eyes red. I know I destroyed us. Us was already injured. You staged a funeral and invited my best friend as the bride. The sentence broke something in him. He turned away, covering his mouth with one hand. For a moment, Amelia saw the man she had loved. Not the liar. Not the thief of rooms and signatures. The frightened dreamer who once asked whether she thought he could build something beautiful. She had said yes. She had not known he would build it from her walls. Lucas turned back. Sienna left me. Amelia did not react. She is staying with her cousin. Patricia is furious. Grant says I should not speak to anyone, but I had to see you. You have. Is there any version of this where you do not hate me? Amelia considered the question. Yes, she said, but none where you keep access to my life. His face crumpled. She turned to leave. Amelia. She paused. Was Northmark always you? Yes. Why did you not tell me? She looked back. At first, because I wanted you to feel trusted. Later, because I was afraid you loved what I gave more than who I was. Yesterday answered that. Lucas had no reply. Amelia walked upstairs before pity could become labor. Chapter 8. Patricia Wren gave an interview 48 hours later. She did not call it an interview. She called it defending her son. That was how Patricia labeled every act of public cruelty, as if motherhood turned knives into shields. She sat in a cream armchair beside a vase of lilies and told a lifestyle columnist that Lucas had been trapped in a cold, unequal relationship with a wealthy woman who used property and money to control him. She described Sienna as a gentle young mother-to-be who offered Lucas the warmth he had been denied. She said Amelia had humiliated a pregnant woman and destroyed a wedding out of spite. Then she made the mistake. Amelia Hart never understood family, Patricia said. Graymere may have her name buried in some trust, but Lucas gave that house life. Buried in some trust. Elise Monroe called Amelia before the article finished circulating. She confirmed your ownership. Amelia looked at the quote. She did. She also opened the door to correcting the shared home narrative. Do it. The response was precise. Graymere House is owned by Hawthorne Lane Trust and has never been owned, pledged, or controlled by Lucas Wren. Mr. Wren's temporary occupancy was permissive and revocable. Claims that he held property rights are false. Any further misrepresentation will be addressed legally. The internet did the rest. People zoomed in on the wedding sign. Finally Home became a joke. Then Northmark filed its formal notice. Wren Hospitality Group's pending financing release was suspended pending governance review, unauthorized property use investigation, and verification of investor representations. That was not gossip. That was oxygen leaving Lucas's company. By Friday, 2 board members requested an emergency meeting. By Saturday, the CFO sent Northmark a private message offering cooperation. By Monday, Grant Holloway resigned as Lucas's personal counsel, citing conflict concerns after discovering his own firm had been used to prepare documents based on incomplete property representations. Amelia attended the emergency meeting by video from Graymere's library. Lucas sat at the Wren Hospitality Board table, pale but shaved. His CFO, Martin Ellis, sat beside him with a stack of records. 2 independent board members appeared on screen. Daniel Cho represented Northmark. Vivian Shaw attended for the estate. Daniel began with the facts. Unauthorized event on investor-affiliated property. Misrepresentation of property access in investor materials. Use of digitally copied signature for vendor approval. Event expenses routed through Hart House Events. Potential misuse of Wren Hospitality staff and funds for personal wedding planning. Lucas listened with his jaw tight. When Daniel finished, Lucas said, "This is a personal vendetta." Amelia had expected that. She leaned slightly toward the camera. "If it were personal, I would have let you marry Sienna and watched the financing collapse later. This is prevention." One board member, Denise Carter, looked at Lucas. "Did you use Graymere House images in our investor deck without formal permission?" Lucas hesitated. Amelia knew Graymere inspired the concept. Denise's voice hardened. That is not what I asked. Martin, the CFO, cleared his throat. The deck identifies Graymere as a founder-associated flagship estate available for future private events. Amelia looked at Lucas. He did not look back. Daniel said, Northmark never approved that representation. Denise closed her eyes briefly. Lucas, the second board member asked, what about the digital approval? Lucas's face went flat. I believed I had verbal authorization for estate use. Amelia said, for your wedding to my best friend? Silence. The board member looked away first. Daniel continued, Northmark's position is that release remains suspended unless Mr. Wren steps back from unilateral authority pending review. The company corrects investor materials, reimburses unauthorized charges, and submits to independent governance oversight. Lucas laughed bitterly. So she gets my company too. Amelia looked at him through the screen. No, she said. Your company gets a chance to survive you. Chapter 9 Sienna's pregnancy became public because Patricia leaked it. Not directly. Patricia was too polished for directness. She allowed a family friend to tell a society blogger that a fragile expectant mother had been traumatized when a powerful woman interrupted her wedding. The post did not name Sienna, but it did not need to. By noon, strangers were debating her character, her body, her unborn child, and whether Amelia should have waited until after the vows to object. Sienna called Amelia again. This time, Amelia answered from the greenhouse. Rain tapped against the glass roof. Tomato vines climbed twine along one wall. Her father had built the greenhouse during her mother's illness because he believed growing things was an argument against despair. Sienna's voice sounded hoarse. Patricia did it. I know. I asked her not to. She said people need to understand I am not just some mistress. Amelia touched a basil leaf between two fingers. And now reporters are outside my cousin's building. Amelia closed her eyes. She hated this. Not because Sienna was innocent. Because Patricia had turned another woman into a shield, and then called the impact sympathy. Do you have security? Amelia asked. No. I will send a contact. You pay them, or your lawyer arranges payment from Lucas. Do not accept anyone Patricia sends. Sienna's breath shook. Why are you still doing this? Because children should not begin life as public relations. Sienna went quiet. Then she said, the doctor confirmed it. 9 weeks. Amelia did the math. 9 weeks. Lucas had been in her bed 6 weeks ago. The old pain tried to rise. She let it rise, then pass. Facts first. Feelings later. That rule had saved her more times than romance ever did. Are you all right medically? She asked. Yes. Good. Lucas wants to talk. That is between you and your lawyer. He says he loves me. Amelia looked at the rain streaking down the greenhouse glass. He may believe that when he says it. Sienna made a small sound. That is not comforting. It was not meant to be. The call ended with no forgiveness, no friendship, no dramatic sisterhood. Just a security contact, 2 legal referrals, and the strange dignity of not allowing an unborn child to become collateral damage. That evening, Amelia returned to the house and found Owen waiting in the foyer. We located the missing boxes from your study, he said. Where? Garage storage. Some files were opened. Amelia went still. Which files? Owen handed her a list. Northmark term sheet drafts. Hawthorne Lane property maps. Graymere event licensing documents. Estate insurance schedules. Her father's trust correspondence. Amelia read the list twice. This was no longer only betrayal. This was a search. Who accessed the garage? She asked. Owen's face was grim. Lucas, Patricia, and Gran on 3 separate dates. Sienna once, but only with Patricia. Amelia looked toward the hallway where her parents' portrait had been rehung. Pull security footage. Already done. Send it to Vivian. Done. She almost smiled at his quiet efficiency. Then Owen said, there is one more thing. He handed her a folder recovered from the garage. Inside was a draft agreement titled, Graymere Event Partnership Memorandum. Prepared for Wren Hospitality Group. Listed owner representative, Lucas Wren. Amelia read the first page. The document proposed turning Graymere House into the inaugural estate venue for Wren Hospitality's private wedding and retreat portfolio. It described Amelia as a passive trust beneficiary whose consent would be obtained after project launch. After project launch, Lucas had not only planned to marry Sienna in her backyard, he planned to make her house the first asset in his brand. Chapter 10. Amelia did not sleep after finding the partnership memorandum. She sat in her father's study until dawn, reading every page. Lucas intended to announce the Graymere estate collection at the wedding reception. Investors would see the house in full event mode. Guests included 2 lifestyle editors, 3 hospitality financiers, and a director from an international resort group. The wedding was not only personal betrayal. It was a launch event. The bride was pregnant. The girlfriend was overseas. The estate was staged. The guests were witnesses to a story Lucas expected to become true by performance. Finally home. Not romance. Brand positioning. Amelia closed the folder at 6:15. By 7, she was on the phone with Daniel Cho. By 8, Northmark had expanded the governance review to include attempted unauthorized asset representation. By 9, Vivian Shaw prepared a cease and desist preventing Wren Hospitality from using Graymere imagery, architectural elements, estate designs, or property references. By 10, Amelia called a different person, Rowan Bell. Rowan was CEO of Bellwether Lodging Group, Wren Hospitality's largest competitor, and the man Lucas hated most in the industry. He was 41, sharp, patient, and widely described as ruthless by men who disliked losing to someone who read contracts. He had pursued Graymere for years as inspiration for a preservation-based hospitality fund. Amelia had always declined because she did not want her home turned into a brand. Now she did not want Lucas's company rewarded for trying. Rowan answered immediately. "Amelia Hart," he said. "To what do I owe the pleasure? Are you still interested in heritage estate hospitality assets?" A pause. Then his voice changed. "Yes. Not Graymere. I assumed. But perhaps a portfolio. Under strict preservation rules, independent governance, and no use of private family residences without consent." "That sounds pointed." "It is. Does this involve Lucas Wren?" Amelia looked at the partnership memorandum. "Unfortunately." Rowan was silent for 2 seconds. "I read the gossip, then unread it and prepare for documents." He laughed softly. "I always liked you. That is not relevant. It rarely is." Within 48 hours, Bellwether Lodging submitted a conditional proposal to acquire Wren Hospitality's viable assets if Northmark moved to enforce governance rights after breach. The offer preserved staff contracts, paid vendors, and separated Lucas from operational control. It also excluded any claim to Graymere House. When Lucas received the term sheet, he came to the gate again. This time, Amelia did not let him inside. He called from the other side, voice ragged. "You are selling my company to Rowan Bell?" Amelia stood in the upstairs window, looking down at him through rain-speckled glass. "Northmark is reviewing options. He is my rival. He is solvent. You planned this from the start." "No, Lucas. You planned a wedding in my backyard." I responded. He looked up, found her silhouette in the window, and shouted, "You cannot just erase me." She watched him from behind the glass. Once, she would have gone down. She would have opened the door, brought him towels, listened until his panic became her responsibility. Now she stayed where she was. "I am not erasing you," she said into the phone. "I am removing you from assets you tried to steal." He lowered his head. For a moment, even through the rain, she could see his shoulders shaking. Maybe from anger. Maybe from grief. Maybe from the realization that the house had never belonged to him just because a woman had loved him inside it. Chapter 11. The Wren Hospitality Board hearing took place in a glass conference room downtown. Amelia attended in person because some rooms required the body, not just the signature. She wore a white suit and her mother's pearl earrings. Not the veil. Never the veil. Her hair was pinned back. Her face was calm. On the table before her sat the Graymere Event Partnership Memorandum, the forged vendor approval, the investor deck, the garage security logs, and photographs from the interrupted wedding. Lucas arrived late. He looked exhausted. His charm had thinned into something brittle. Patricia followed him despite having no board role. Sienna did not attend. Grant had been replaced by a litigation attorney named Marlowe Fitch, who looked competent enough to be unhappy. Denise Carter opened the meeting. "We will review the allegations related to unauthorized property use, investor misrepresentation, and executive conduct." Patricia spoke before Lucas could. "This meeting is a disgrace. Lucas built this company from nothing while Amelia sat on inherited wealth, and now wants to punish him for finding happiness." Denise looked at her. "Mrs. Wren, you are here as an observer. Speak again without invitation, and you will be removed." Patricia turned red. Amelia appreciated Denise in that moment. Daniel Cho presented the evidence. He did not dramatize the wedding. He did not need to. The documents were theatrical enough. Investor deck, Graymere Estate, prototype private heritage venue. Partnership memo, owner consent to be obtained after launch. Vendor authorization, digital signature copied from prior estate approval. Payment routing, Hart House Events account used without Amelia's authorization. Security footage, Lucas and Patricia accessing Amelia's files. Email from Lucas to Grant. Once investors see the wedding setup, Amelia will have to formalize. Easier to ask forgiveness when the concept is live. That email ended the room. Lucas closed his eyes. Patricia whispered, "Oh, Lucas." Sienna had been a betrayal. The email was a confession. Denise looked physically ill. You planned to force asset participation after staging the event? Lucas's attorney leaned in. My client disputes the interpretation. Denise slammed one hand lightly on the table. It is in writing. Lucas opened his eyes. They went first to Amelia, not the board. I was desperate, he said. Amelia did not answer. He continued, voice raw. The company needed the estate concept. Investors loved Graymere. You kept saying no. You would support my company in every way except the one that would make it real. Because Graymere is my home, Amelia said. It could have been more. It already was. That stopped him. For a second, she saw him understand what he had not understood before. More was not always expansion. Sometimes more was breakfast in a quiet kitchen, a garden planted by a grieving daughter, a library where a man was trusted enough to read, a home not turned into inventory. But understanding came too late to undo the email. Northmark invoked its rights. Lucas was suspended as CEO pending review. The company accepted a conditional restructuring process. Bellwether Lodging entered negotiations to acquire viable assets while preserving employee contracts. Unauthorized charges would be reimbursed. Graymere references would be removed from all materials. Lucas's equity would be subject to clawback if misconduct caused damages. Patricia stood. You cannot let her do this. Denise looked at her. Your son did this. Patricia stared around the table and found no air, no empire, no soft place to land her outrage. Lucas remained seated. When the meeting ended, he approached Amelia in the hallway. Sienna is keeping the baby, he said. Amelia looked at him. That is her decision. I know. Do you? He nodded, slow and defeated. I am arranging support through counsel. Good. She will not speak to me except through her lawyer. Also good. He gave a tired, broken laugh. You taught everyone boundaries. No. You taught us why we needed them. The sentence hurt him. She saw it. She did not take it back. He looked at the pearl earrings. Your mother's? Yes. I am sorry about the veil. For the first time all day, Amelia's face moved. Pain, brief and bright. Lucas saw it and looked ashamed in a way that seemed deeper than fear. That was Sienna, he said, then stopped. No, that was all of us. Amelia nodded once. It was the closest he had come to truth. Still not enough to restore anything. Chapter 12. Patricia's final public attack came from the kind of charity luncheon where women wore soft colors and said brutal things over poached salmon. The event was hosted at the Crescent Club, all white tablecloths, pale orchids, and windows overlooking a city that had funded more betrayals than it would ever confess. Patricia attended in lavender again. Amelia later wondered if the color was deliberate, a costume of maternal gentleness worn by a woman who treated other people's homes like available inventory. Sienna was not there. That was the point. Patricia took the microphone after dessert under the excuse of thanking donors for supporting young mothers. Her voice trembled at first, just enough to create sympathy before facts arrived to complicate it. I have watched someone very dear to my family suffer public cruelty in recent weeks, she said. A young expectant mother, frightened and alone, was humiliated in front of guests because a wealthy woman could not bear to be left. Several heads tilted together. Phones appeared beneath tables. Patricia continued, We speak often of women's empowerment, but empowerment should not mean using money, property, and corporate pressure to punish a man for choosing love and a child. By the time Elise Monroe forwarded the first clip to Amelia, the phrase choosing love and a child was already moving through social media. Amelia watched the video once in her kitchen. Owen stood near the island with a folder of repaired estate inventories. Do you want tea? No. Something stronger? Evidence. He placed the folder beside her. Within an hour, Amelia's team had the full luncheon recording. Within 2, Sienna's attorney called Vivian Shaw. Sienna wanted to respond. Amelia listened on speaker from the library, while Vivian handled the legal language. Sienna's voice sounded steadier than it had in weeks. Patricia does not get to use my baby after what she did. Vivian asked, what exactly did she do? Sienna inhaled shakily. She told me the wedding had to happen before Amelia returned, because men like Lucas got confused when old obligations stood in front of new families. She said if I waited, Amelia would use money to take my child away. She said Graymere would be mine if I proved I belonged there. Amelia closed her eyes. Sienna continued. She gave me the veil. The room went still. Vivian's pen paused. Patricia gave it to you? Yes. I asked if Amelia would mind. Patricia said Amelia had no use for bridal things. She said dead women should not control living happiness. For several seconds, Amelia heard nothing. Not the radiator. Not the distant sound of staff in the hall. Not Vivian's controlled breathing. Dead women should not control living happiness. Her mother, reduced to an obstacle in a stolen aesthetic. Owen looked away, jaw tight. Vivian's voice cooled. Sienna, are you willing to sign a statement? Yes. And provide any messages? Yes. I saved them after Amelia told me to get my own lawyer. Amelia opened her eyes. That was why she had answered the midnight call. Not to absolve Sienna. Not to become generous enough for strangers to applaud. Because frightened people with records could stop powerful people from rewriting rooms. By evening, Sienna's statement was released. She did not ask for pity. She did not excuse the affair. She admitted wrongdoing, confirmed Patricia's role, and stated clearly that Amelia had been the only person who advised her to obtain independent medical and legal support. The final paragraph changed everything. I hurt Amelia heart deeply. I cannot undo that. But Patricia Wren is not protecting me or my child by using us in public statements. She encouraged a wedding on property that was not Lucas's, handed me a veil that belonged to Amelia's late mother, and told me this was how I would become the real woman of the house. I now understand that a house cannot be made yours by humiliating the woman who owns it. The clip of Patricia at the luncheon began to rot under the weight of Sienna's statement. Reporters who had called Amelia cold now asked why Patricia had inserted herself into property and pregnancy matters. Donors to Patricia's maternal charity requested governance documents. 2 board members resigned from that charity by morning. Patricia called Lucas first. Lucas did not answer. Then she called Amelia. Amelia let it go to voicemail. Patricia's voice came through later, stripped of silk. You turned her against me. Amelia saved the message and forwarded it to Vivian. Then she went to the sewing room, unlocked the cedar chest, and checked the veil. It lay quiet in its paper, damaged but safe. Dead women, Amelia whispered, thinking of her mother laughing beneath the garden arch, still deserve respect. The house seemed to agree. Chapter 13 Lucas's company did not fall in one dramatic collapse. It was taken apart in conference rooms. That was less cinematic and more devastating. Collapse allowed a man to blame fate. Review forced everyone to read what he had done. The independent investigation lasted 6 weeks. It found misuse of staff time, unauthorized investor representations, improper access to Graymere files, undisclosed personal conduct affecting corporate governance, and a pattern of decisions made to pressure Amelia into converting private property into a commercial asset. It also found something Amelia had not expected. Lucas had promised Patricia a consulting role in the Graymere estate collection. The email was blunt. Once Amelia sees the press and investor enthusiasm, she will formalize. Mother can handle guest experience. Sienna photographs well for family brand. We need the story to look inevitable. Amelia read the email in Vivian's office while rain streaked the glass. We need the story to look inevitable. She thought of every chair on the lawn, every flower, every guest, every whispered claim that she had been absent, cold, already over, already moved out of the future. They had not only betrayed her, they had staged inevitability. Vivian watched her carefully. Do you need a minute? No. That was a human question, not a legal one. Amelia looked up. Her attorney's expression was gentler than usual, which almost undid her. Then yes, Amelia said. Vivian closed the folder and waited. Amelia walked to the window. Below, taxis moved through silver rain. People crossed streets under umbrellas, each carrying private disasters the city did not pause to acknowledge. He knew I hate being forced in public, Amelia said. Vivian said nothing. My father used to say pressure reveals ownership. If someone has to corner you to get a yes, They already know the answer is no. Smart man. He would have hated Lucas. Probably. Amelia almost smiled. No legal caution? Not about dead Father's opinions. At the final Wren hospitality hearing, Rowan Bell attended as prospective acquirer. Lucas sat opposite him, looking like a man forced to watch his rival inspect the bones of his dream. Patricia was not allowed inside. She waited in the lobby and complained to anyone foolish enough to pause. Denise Carter presented the investigation findings. Lucas did not contest most of them. His attorney attempted to frame his conduct as founder overreach during emotional stress. Denise responded that founder overreach usually meant unauthorized spending or hiring, not converting an investor's home into a wedding-based launch event while the investor was out of the country. Rowan said very little. When asked whether Bellwether would preserve employment, he said yes. When asked whether Lucas would have operational involvement, he said no. When asked whether Graymere House would be referenced in any future brand materials, he looked directly at Amelia. Never, he said. The board voted to accept the restructuring and sale of core assets. Lucas lost control. Not because Amelia shouted louder. Because his own documents spoke clearly. After the vote, Patricia pushed past reception and entered the hallway. Lucas, she cried, as if the room had murdered him. He stood near the window, face pale. Patricia turned on Amelia. Are you satisfied? Everyone heard it. Amelia looked at her. No, she said. Satisfaction would require this to have been less ugly. Patricia's eyes shone with rage. You destroyed my son. Lucas spoke before Amelia could. Mother. Patricia turned. Do not defend her. Lucas looked exhausted, but his voice was firm enough to stop the hallway. She did not write the emails. Patricia froze. She did not forge the signature, he continued. She did not move her own things. She did not put Sienna in that veil. She did not make me use Graymere in the deck. You were under pressure. I was greedy. The word landed harder because it came from him. Patricia shook her head. No. Yes. You love that house. Lucas looked at Amelia. I loved what I thought it made me. For a second, Amelia saw Patricia try to reject the sentence and fail. Her son had stepped outside the story she built for him, and there was no graceful way to pull him back in front of witnesses. Lucas turned to Amelia. I will sign the reimbursement agreement. She nodded once. Good. And the statement? Good. Patricia whispered, Lucas. But he did not look at her again. It was the first adult thing Amelia had seen him do in months. Chapter 14, the settlement statement, came out the next day. Lucas Wren accepted responsibility for unauthorized use of Graymere House imagery, event resources, and approval materials. He apologized to Amelia Hart, Sienna Vale, employees of Wren Hospitality Group, and investors affected by his conduct. He confirmed that Graymere House had never been owned or controlled by him. He confirmed Amelia had not authorized the wedding or the commercial concept. He agreed to reimburse costs, cooperate with restructuring, and refrain from public contact. It did not fix anything, but it removed the lie from the room. Amelia read it at breakfast with coffee cooling beside her. Beatrice called at 9. I saw the statement, her aunt said. Good morning to you too. Do not become sarcastic with your elders. It weakens my moral advantage. Amelia smiled despite herself. What did you think? I think men discover accountability when all exits are locked. That is harsh. It is accurate. Amelia looked through the kitchen window at the garden. The arch was being cleaned that morning, stripped of the last residue from the wedding florist's wires. Beatrice's voice softened. How are you really? The question landed differently from others. Not strategic. Not legal. Not asking whether she had won. Just how are you, child, beneath all this competence? Amelia held the mug with both hands. I feel like my house survived before I did, she said. Beatrice was quiet for a moment. Then let it hold you until you catch up. Amelia closed her eyes. Your mother used to say houses remember how to love us when people forget, Beatrice added. That did it. Amelia cried at the kitchen table, while her aunt stayed on the phone and said nothing at all. No advice. No fury. No hurry. Just silence that did not demand performance. Afterward, Amelia washed her face, walked to the garden, and stood under the arch while the restorer removed the last white ribbon from the ironwork. Do you want to keep any of it? He asked. She looked at the ribbon in his hand. For a moment, she saw Sienna's veil, Lucas's cream tuxedo, Patricia's lavender dress, guests turning to stare. No, she said. The ribbon went into a black trash bag. That sound, soft and final, felt better than applause. Chapter 15. Sienna gave birth 7 months later during a snowstorm. Amelia found out through a message from Sienna's attorney, not Sienna directly. That boundary had been negotiated with care. Updates about the child could be shared once, without expectation of relationship. Baby girl. Healthy. Mother stable. Name, Lily May Vale. Amelia read the message in the library, while the first foundation planning documents sat open before her. She had spent the morning designing a retreat program around financial literacy, property rights, evidence preservation, and emotional recovery after coercive relationships. The topics sounded clinical. They were not. They were survival translated into curriculum. She replied through Vivian, wishing health and safety to both. No more. That night, Sienna sent a separate handwritten note, delivered through counsel 3 weeks later. Amelia opened it only after Vivian scanned it. The handwriting was careful, almost schoolgirl neat. Amelia, I am not writing to ask forgiveness. I know I am not entitled to it. Lily is here. She has dark hair and very serious eyes. When I held her, I understood for the first time how obscene it was that I stood in your garden thinking a house, a veil, and a man could make me real. I will tell her the truth when she is old enough. Not the details that hurt for no reason, but the truth that I harmed another woman because I wanted a life I had not built. I hope she never mistakes being chosen for being worthy. Thank you for telling me to get my own doctor. Sienna Amelia folded the letter. She sat with it for a long while. Then she placed it in the drawer with the birth announcement. Not friendship. Not forgiveness. Record. A different kind than the legal files, but still record. Proof that people could become more honest after doing harm, even if honesty did not erase the harm. Chapter 16. The Heart Foundation began as a spreadsheet. Amelia liked that. Other people liked origin stories with lightning, visions, and dramatic vows. Amelia preferred rows, dates, projected budgets, legal structures, staffing needs, insurance requirements, curriculum outlines, emergency protocols, and donor restrictions. A thing built to protect women needed less poetry at the beginning and more liability coverage. She hired experts before announcing anything. Vivian Shaw designed legal clinics. Julia Mercer built financial coercion workshops. Elise Monroe created communications training for women facing reputational attacks. Owen helped convert Graymere's West Wing into guest rooms that locked from the inside and opened easily from the hallway in case of emergency. He insisted on both. Safety, he said, should never create another cage. Amelia personally reviewed every room. No family portraits in guest spaces. No mirrors facing beds. No chairs positioned with backs to doors. No forms asking women to summarize trauma before they had tea. When Rowan Bell offered a large donation from Bellwether after acquiring Wren Hospitality's assets, Amelia accepted only after adding a restriction. No branding, no naming rights, no speeches about corporate compassion. Rowan signed without complaint. You are very strict, he said during the signing meeting. Yes. That was not criticism. I did not take it as one. He smiled. Good. She liked Rowan, because he did not confuse being denied with being attacked. It was a rarer quality than wealth. The first retreat accepted 12 women. Amelia read the applications late at night, not to judge pain, but to make sure the foundation could support the complexity it invited into her home. There was a surgeon whose husband controlled her bank accounts. A teacher whose fiancé opened credit cards in her name. A hotel manager whose boyfriend threatened to leak private photos if she left. A mother of 2 whose in-laws had hidden her passport. Amelia sat in the library with the applications spread before her and thought of the wedding chairs on the lawn. For a moment, the old anger returned. Then it changed shape. Anger, given work, could become architecture. That was the beginning of the foundation. Chapter 17. The first retreat nearly failed because of muffins. The caterer delivered blueberry muffins with almond flour despite 3 allergy notes. Owen caught it before breakfast, called the vendor with a voice so cold Amelia could hear frost forming over the phone, and drove himself to town for safe replacements. The women arrived while he was gone. Amelia greeted them in the foyer without cameras, speeches, or donor displays. She wore a navy sweater, black trousers, and flat shoes. The house smelled of coffee, lemon polish, and rain. At first, the women were careful. They complimented the house too much. They apologized for their luggage. They asked whether they were allowed in the library. One woman stood in the doorway of her room for several minutes before stepping inside. Amelia recognized the posture. People who had been punished for taking up space often asked permission from furniture. Everything here is for use, she told them at lunch. If a door is closed, knock. If it is open, enter. If you need quiet, take it. If you need help, ask anyone with a green badge. A woman named Mara raised her hand halfway, then lowered it. Amelia smiled slightly. You can ask. Why green? Because red felt dramatic. The table laughed, softly at first, then with relief. By evening, the house sounded different. Not healed. Healing did not arrive before dinner like an efficient guest, but less guarded. A few women sat in the library comparing notes about separate bank accounts. 2 walked in the garden. 1 cried in the pantry while Julia Mercer sat beside her on the floor and discussed credit freezes. Amelia watched from the terrace. Owen joined her. Muffins aside, not bad. You saved us from almond litigation. A proud day. They looked toward the garden arch. It had been wrapped in small lanterns for the evening session. Owen said, Your parents would like this. Amelia nodded. This time, the thought did not hurt as much. Chapter 18. On the final night of the retreat, Mara asked the question everyone else had been circling. How did you not break when you saw them? They were sitting beneath the garden arch, wrapped in blankets, teacups in hand. Fireflies moved through the hedges. The air smelled of wet grass and summer flowers. Amelia looked at the women gathered before her. She could have given the answer people liked. Strength. Self-respect. Instinct. A clean line from shock to action. Instead, she told the truth. I did break, she said. The group went quiet. I just did not break in the way they had prepared for. I did not scream because my body went cold. I did not cry because I could not find the room inside myself where tears were kept. I asked for records because records were the first stable thing I could reach. Mara's eyes filled. Amelia continued. Later, I broke in smaller ways. In the kitchen. In the sewing room. While reading an apology. While throwing away a ribbon. Pain does not always arrive at the scene. Sometimes it waits until the paperwork is done. No one spoke. But breaking is not the same as ending, Amelia said. That is what I wish someone had told me earlier. You can break and still choose. Break and still call the lawyer. Break and still protect your child, your house, your account, your body, your name. Broken things can still refuse to be stolen. A woman near the back covered her face. Amelia let the silence breathe. Then she said, The goal is not to become untouchable. Untouchable is lonely. The goal is to become unremovable from your own life. That sentence became the Foundation's unofficial motto, though Amelia never printed it on a sign. Some words work better when remembered, not branded. Sienna gave a statement through her attorney 1 week later. She confirmed that she had believed Lucas and Amelia were separated. She confirmed that Patricia had encouraged the wedding at Graymere and described the house as Lucas's future home. She admitted wearing the veil after being told it would symbolize a new beginning. She denied knowledge of the forged authorization or investor materials. The internet did what the internet always did. Half the strangers hated her. Half hated Amelia for not hating her enough. No one asked whether strangers should be voting on the lives of unborn children. Amelia refused all interviews. Instead, she reopened Graymere slowly. First, she restored the library. Then the bedroom. Then the garden. The wedding chairs were gone, but the grass remembered. For weeks, Amelia could not walk past the iron arch without seeing Lucas in cream and Sienna in pearls. Eventually, Owen suggested removing it. Amelia said no. My father built it, she said. Yes, Owen said, but he built it for joy. That sentence stayed with her. The next morning, she called a restoration artist. Not to remove the arch. To repair it, repaint it, and plant climbing blue clematis around it, her mother's favorite flower. Healing, Amelia discovered, was not always taking down what had witnessed pain. Sometimes it was teaching the object to witness something else. Sienna wrote once after her first independent ultrasound. It is a girl. I am sorry for everything. I know that does not fix it. Amelia sat with the message for a long time. Then she replied, It does not fix it. I hope she is healthy. That was all. No forgiveness. No cruelty. A boundary with a small window open for the child. Lucas's company restructuring moved quickly. Bellwether acquired the viable assets. Employees stayed. Vendors were paid. Lucas retained a minority financial interest, but lost operational control. Rowan Bell sent Amelia a note after closing. Graymere is not mentioned anywhere. As promised. Amelia appreciated that more than flowers. Patricia attempted one final attack through a private family complaint, claiming Amelia had intentionally destroyed Lucas's career. The complaint died after Vivian Shaw attached the email about asking forgiveness once the concept was live. Patricia stopped giving interviews. That, too, was a form of public service. Chapter 19. 3 months after the backyard wedding that never finished, Amelia hosted a dinner at Graymere. Not a gala. Not a brand event. Not a performance of resilience. Just 12 people at the long table beneath the terrace lights. Owen and his wife, Elise Monroe, Vivian Shaw, Daniel Cho, Julia Mercer from accounting, Rowan Bell, Denise Carter, 2 old friends from London, and Amelia's Aunt Beatrice, who arrived with a lemon tart and the righteous fury of a woman who had never liked Lucas but had been too polite to say so often. "I said it at Thanksgiving," Beatrice announced over soup. "A man who compliments a house too much is measuring curtains in his mind." Rowan nearly choked on his wine. Amelia laughed for the first time in days. The sound surprised her. It surprised everyone else too, but they were kind enough not to stare. After dinner, they moved to the garden. The iron arch had been restored. Blue clematis curled around the sides, still young but stubborn. Lanterns glowed from the trees, not her father's antiques this time, but new ones Amelia chose herself. Owen raised a glass. "To Graymere," Beatrice added, "and to changing all gate codes." They drank. Later, Rowan found Amelia near the arch. "You did not have to invite me," he said. "You bought a company I needed separated from my life. That earns soup. High honor. Do not let it change you." He smiled. "I will try to remain insufferable." They stood in comfortable silence. Rowan did not ask about Lucas. That was one reason Amelia tolerated him. Finally, he said, "What will you do with the house?" "Live in it." Radical. Apparently. "No events." She looked at the lawn. "Maybe someday. On my terms. For causes that matter. Not because someone needs a backdrop for ambition." Rowan nodded. "Good." She glanced at him. "You are very agreeable tonight. I am standing in a garden where a woman came home from London and stopped an unauthorized wedding with property law. I know when to be respectful." Amelia laughed again. This time, it felt less surprising. Chapter 20. Sienna's daughter was born in February. She named her Lily Vale. Not Wren. Lucas filed for paternity and support through counsel. Sienna agreed to supervised introductions after he completed a parenting program and financial disclosures. Patricia tried to object to the surname and was informed by Sienna's attorney that grandmothers without custody rights were welcome to have feelings privately. Amelia heard this from Vivian Shaw, who tried to deliver it professionally and failed because it was too satisfying. "Grandmothers without custody rights," Vivian repeated. "I may embroider it." Amelia smiled. "Do not." "Fine. A mug then." Amelia never met Lily, but she received a birth announcement in a plain envelope. A small photograph. A tiny red face. Dark hair. Closed fists. On the back, Sienna had written, "I will teach her that wanting someone else's life is not the same as building her own." Amelia placed the card in a drawer. Not the cedar chest. Not with sacred things. A drawer was enough. Lucas wrote a letter too. It arrived handwritten, which meant his lawyer had either approved humility or given up. "Amelia, I have tried to write this without asking for anything. I am sorry for the house. For the wedding. For Sienna. For the veil. For the email. For every time I called your boundaries control because I wanted access without gratitude. I used your love as infrastructure. Then I resented you for being the only reason it held. I am working with a therapist. I am learning to be Lily's father without making her mother responsible for my shame. I know none of this restores what I broke. I only wanted one true thing on the record. You gave me a home. I tried to turn it into proof that I mattered. I am sorry." Lucas. Amelia read the letter once. Then she read it again. She did not cry until the second reading. Not because she wanted him back. That door had closed. Not even because she forgave him fully. Forgiveness, she was learning, came in uneven weather. She cried because the apology finally named the wound. He had used her love as infrastructure. That was exactly it. She placed the letter in a file labeled closure. Then she went outside and pruned the roses. Chapter 21. 1 year after the interrupted wedding, Amelia opened Graymere House for the first time. Not as a hotel. Not as a private wedding venue. Not as part of anyone's portfolio. As the site of the Heart Foundation's first retreat for women rebuilding after financial and emotional coercion. There were no bridal arches. No champagne towers. No society photographers. The guests arrived with weekend bags, cautious smiles, and the tired eyes of people who had spent too long explaining why something hurt. Some were divorced. Some were leaving. Some were not ready to leave, but needed to know what documents to copy before they tried. The workshops were practical. How to identify financial control. How to preserve evidence. How to read property documents. How to separate forgiveness from access. How to rebuild a home after someone else tried to define it. Amelia did not tell her story on the first day. She let lawyers, accountants, therapists, and advocates speak. She moved through the house quietly, making sure tea was hot, chairs were comfortable, and no one felt trapped in any room. On the second evening, the group gathered in the garden beneath the restored iron arch. Blue clematis climbed thickly now, soft and bright in the summer light. Amelia stood before 24 women and took a breath. "A year ago," she said, "I came home early from a business trip and found a wedding in this backyard. No one moved. My boyfriend was marrying my best friend. The guests were seated. The flowers were arranged. My mother's veil was on someone else's head. My house had been turned into a stage for my replacement." A few women lowered their eyes. Recognition did not always look like surprise. "People later asked me how I stayed calm," Amelia continued. "The truth is, calm was not peace. Calm was the only door I could find out of shock. I walked through it, because screaming would have given everyone a cleaner way to dismiss me." The garden listened. "For a long time, I thought being generous meant making other people comfortable with what they took. I thought love meant offering the best parts of my life without keeping receipts. But generosity without boundaries becomes an invitation to people who think gratitude is optional." Owen stood at the back near the terrace, eyes damp. Amelia looked toward the house. "This place was used against me because someone believed a home belonged to whoever was bold enough to claim it. It took me months to understand that reclaiming it did not mean locking every door forever. It meant deciding who entered, why, and under what truth." She turned back to the women. "If someone has made you feel cruel for protecting your own life, please hear me. A boundary is not revenge. A document is not bitterness. Evidence is not obsession. Leaving is not failure. And staying long enough to plan safely is not weakness." The words settled among them. "You are allowed to come home to yourself," Amelia said, "even if the first thing you find there is wreckage." No one applauded immediately. Then one woman began. Then another. Soon the garden filled with a sound warmer than celebration. Not victory. Witness. That night, after everyone went inside, Amelia stayed beneath the arch alone. The air smelled of grass and roses. The house glowed behind her, steady and alive. For once, the memory of Lucas and Sienna at the altar did not arrive first. Instead, she saw her parents laughing in rain. She saw women drinking tea in the library. She saw herself at the garden path with a suitcase, not yet aware that the worst moment of her life would become the doorway back into it. Chapter 22. Lucas returned to Graymere once, 18 months after the wedding. He did not come to the gate unannounced. He wrote first, through counsel, asking whether he could retrieve one remaining item found in storage, a box of childhood photographs his mother had left in the attic during the move. Amelia agreed to a supervised pickup. He arrived alone. No Patricia. No lawyer. No performance. He looked different. Less polished. Less hungry. Still handsome, but the charm no longer entered the room before he did. Owen led him to the side entrance. Amelia met him in the vestibule because it seemed cowardly not to and foolish to offer more. "Hello, Lucas." "Amelia." The silence between them was not empty. It held too much to be empty. Owen handed him the box. Lucas accepted it with both hands. "Thank you. You're welcome." He looked toward the hall, where a group from the foundation retreat had left a basket of handwritten notes on the console table. One card read, "I slept through the night for the first time in months." Lucas's gaze lingered. "I heard what you are doing here," he said. "Good. It suits the house." Amelia did not answer. He looked at her. "Lily is walking. I am glad. Sienna is doing well. Better without my mother. Many people are." He laughed softly, accepting the hit. "Yes." Another silence. Then he said, "I used to think this place made me feel small because it was yours." Amelia waited. "Now I think it made me feel small because I knew I had not earned the peace inside it." It was a good sentence. Hard one, perhaps. Still not a key. "I hope you build peace somewhere else," she said. He nodded. "I am trying." Before leaving, he looked toward the garden. "May I see the arch?" Owen shifted. Amelia considered. Then she said, "From the terrace." They walked no farther than the open doors. The arch stood beneath blue flowers, completely changed and somehow more itself. Lucas stared at it for a long time. You kept it, he said. It was never yours to ruin permanently. He closed his eyes briefly. Then he opened them and nodded. Goodbye, Amelia. Goodbye, Lucas. This time, the word did not tear. It simply closed. Chapter 23 years later, people still told the story incorrectly. Some called it the backyard wedding scandal. Some called it the mistress wedding. Some called it the day Amelia Hart came home and destroyed a man's company. The internet preferred clean villains, cleaner heroines, and endings sharp enough to fit in a caption. The real story was less tidy. Amelia did not destroy Lucas. She stopped funding his access to her life. She did not save Sienna. She refused to let Sienna's child become a weapon. She did not turn Graymere into a monument to betrayal. She made it useful. On the 5th anniversary of the interrupted wedding, Graymere hosted its largest foundation retreat yet. 50 women came from 7 states. Lawyers took meetings in the library. Financial counselors worked in the breakfast room. Children played on the south lawn, under the supervision of volunteers. The garden arch was covered in blue blooms so thickly that the iron beneath barely showed. Amelia stood on the terrace at sunset, watching the house hold all of it. Owen joined her with 2 cups of tea. 5 years, he said. Do not make it sound ancient. In scandal years, it is a dynasty. She laughed. He handed her tea. Your father would like this. Amelia looked at the garden. He would say the chairs are too close to the roses. Also true. They stood together in comfortable silence. Below, a little girl ran under the arch chasing bubbles. Not Lily, though Amelia thought of her briefly. Sienna sent updates once a year now, through a polite holiday card. Lily had dark curls, serious eyes, and apparently loved dinosaurs. Amelia kept the cards in the drawer, not because the past had become friendship, but because the child existed beyond the betrayal and deserved not to be reduced to it. Rowan Bell arrived late to the retreat dinner, as he often did now, carrying a box of pastries and an apology that sounded insufficient by design. He and Amelia had become friends slowly, then something warmer even more slowly, though neither rushed to name it. The difference between him and Lucas was not that Rowan needed nothing. Everyone needed something. The difference was that Rowan asked before entering. He stopped beside her on the terrace. I brought almond croissants. Owen said, At 7 in the evening? Time is a social construct. Amelia took the box. That sentence cost you credibility. I have spare. Owen left them with a smile he pretended not to have. Rowan looked toward the arch. Big day? Good day. Any ghosts? Amelia considered. Once, the garden had been full of them. Lucas at the altar. Sienna in the veil. Patricia's voice. Guests whispering. The suitcase beside her hand. The feeling of arriving too late to a life that was supposed to be hers. Now the garden held other things. Women laughing. Children chasing bubbles. Blue flowers. Tea. Work. Witness. No, she said. Not today. Rowan nodded. He did not fill the silence. She liked that. Later, after dinner, Amelia walked alone beneath the arch. She touched one of the clematis blooms gently. The first time she stood there, she had been forced into the role of abandoned woman, betrayed girlfriend, humiliated homeowner. Everyone had looked at her and expected the simplest version of pain. But pain had not been simple. It had been a map. It showed her where love had become labor, where generosity had become access, where silence had become permission, where home had become a word other people thought they could steal if they printed it beautifully enough on a sign. She took the map seriously. That was why she found her way out. Chapter 24. At the end of the retreat, the women gathered in the foyer to leave. Some hugged Amelia. Some only nodded. Some were not ready to be touched. Amelia understood all of it. Healing had manners of its own. One woman lingered near the door, a teacher named Hannah with tired eyes and a folder clutched to her chest. Can I ask you something? Hannah said. Of course. When you saw them at the altar, did you know immediately that you were done? Amelia looked through the open door toward the garden path. People loved immediately. It made decisions sound clean, as if the heart were a switch and dignity a blade. No, she said. Hannah looked surprised. Amelia continued. I knew immediately that something unforgivable had happened. That is not the same as feeling done. Feeling done came later. After the documents. After the lies. After he asked me to protect his company before he apologized for my mother's veil. Hannah's eyes filled. So it is normal if part of me still wants him to be who I thought he was? Amelia's voice softened. Yes. The woman looked down, ashamed. Amelia touched the edge of the folder, not the woman's hand. But wanting the version you loved does not obligate you to live with the version who harmed you. Hannah nodded slowly. Keep copies of everything, Amelia added. For the first time, Hannah smiled. That part one learned here. After everyone left, Amelia walked through the house and turned off lights room by room. The library, the dining room, the sewing room, the foyer. At the front door, she paused beside her parents' portrait. Her mother smiled in the photograph with wind in her hair. Her father looked at her as if she were the only answer he had ever trusted. Amelia touched the frame lightly. I kept it, she whispered. Not the house only. The dignity, the memory, the ability to love without handing over the deed. Outside, the garden settled into evening. The arch stood quiet beneath its flowers. The sign that once read "Finally Home" was long gone, burned in the fireplace with other trash from the canceled wedding. Amelia did not need a sign anymore. She knew where home was. It was not where Lucas stood. It was not where Sienna wore the veil. It was not where guests watched and waited for her to break. Home was the place she returned to herself, suitcase in hand, heart split open, and still found the key. Subscribe for more stories about betrayal, hidden power, and the quiet moment a woman takes her life back.